Good morning and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. Let me move my baubles out the way. My name is Graham Hughes. Welcome, welcome. Sadly, Christmas decorations have had to be put away. Oh, it's such a shame. Christmas is over. Now we've just got the hard slog of everything else. Although it is Orthodox Christmas tomorrow, so I suppose we could celebrate Christmas again if we wanted to, if we really wanted to, in Ethiopia or Russia or somewhere. But yeah, it is Tuesday, the 6th of January 2026. It's not looking so good so far, is it, this year? Yeah, it's just a bit shit. All of that. I mean, from the get-go, there was a horrific fire in Switzerland, and then literally 2 days later, there was an invasion of Venezuela by the US without letting their allies know first, without letting Congress know what they were up to. They just went in and they kidnapped the leader of Venezuela and took him away to put him on trial in their own country. Yeah. But yeah, the moment that we're in, Donald Trump has authorized the seizure of a sitting foreign leader without approval from Congress or from anyone. The operation has been presented as decisive, clean, cost-free. Nobody died. This is a case of military force being used first, and then explanation follows later. And speed is obviously used in these situations to create what is certainly a political inevitability, and the fact that allies were informed after the fact and all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing, and here's what I want to talk to you about today. It's not necessarily the response to this. It's not what happened. It's not the response. It's not what's going to happen to Maduro, or even what's going to happen necessarily to Venezuela going forward. It's what's going to happen to the world. And I want to try and make an argument that the rules-based order that we thought the world was based on, or we were told the world was based on, I should say, never really existed. That's what I'm saying. It's just never really existed. It was just always what America wanted for us here in Europe, in the western side of Europe. Over in the east until 1989, it was pretty much what Russia wanted. That went, in the eastern side until the very end of that year, and then the first couple of years of the 90s as the Soviet Union fell apart. And then you've got the sphere of influence of China, which I suppose, if you look back through the 20th century, wasn't as huge as it might have been, because of certain domestic policies that they decided to take, right? But still, a lot of the countries in that area are now basically beholden to China. Not because China has a huge army, which it does, or nuclear weapons, which it also does. It's more to do with trade. It's more to do with the dependency, the economic dependency, which I talked about on Sunday, on the Sunday sermon. Economic dependency on America can't be overstated. Like it is real. And as I said on Sunday, if Keir Starmer told Trump to fuck off, it could lead to the deaths of a lot of British people. Children being plunged into poverty by our economy, just getting screwed over by America deciding to, I don't know, put 100% tariffs on everything. Stopping certain services that we completely rely on for everyday life, like Visa, MasterCard, like Google, Microsoft, just saying, don't give them any updates. Something as simple as that. I know that would be a huge deal for these companies, but Trump's got enough wealth and America's got enough wealth to pay all these dickheads off, to make them do whatever he wants them to do, which is really grim. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking about this morning. And before I get on with that, I just want to say hello to everyone watching at home. We've got Sarah Davis in there. We've got Plum. We've got Sid and Elle and One Angry Pagan. We've got Veg Pie as well and Reagan Elite. Hello, Reagan, with his big spanner. And we've got spheres of influence are so 19th century. Yeah, but did they really ever go away? Did they? I'm not so sure. So if you'd like to give us a like before we get started, and also if you're not already subscribed and you want to join the chat, or you just feel like doing something nice, subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost anything, and hit the bell notification icon to let you know when we are going live. I mean, that's a little less urgent than it was in December, when times of shows would shift at a moment's notice, and I'll be doing specials and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, still, sometimes I do stuff on Thursdays. I might start doing stuff on Saturdays again, depending on how things are going here. If I'm going out or something, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do an episode if I'm going out, but generally speaking, January is a bit crap for doing anything, isn't it? Because you're out of money, which sucks. And yeah, it's cold. It's cold outside. There's no kind of atmosphere. So before we press on, I'm going to just set a small-ish goal of just 5 super chats over the next hour, and if we get that, I will launch the confetti cannon. It's like confetti, but we say confetti because that's almost what Trump said when he was texting at fucking dickhead o'clock in the morning and during his first term as president. Can't believe I have to say that. First term as president. Just words that should never go together when regarding Trump. So anyway, as we all know, Nicolas Maduro removed by US forces and he's been transferred to New York. The action has been labelled as law enforcement. I talked about this last night with Scott, where he's like, is it an invasion? Did he have to ask Congress? No, he didn't have to ask Congress. And America didn't have to ask any of its allies. It didn't need permission from the UN. Don't forget that Russia invaded Ukraine without the permission of the UN. The US invaded Iraq without the permission of the UN. You do not need the UN's blessing to go and do this kind of shit, right? The skirmishes that happen in Kashmir between India and Pakistan, the UN doesn't bless them, in the same way that it doesn't bless the skirmishes between Eritrea and Sudan, or Eritrea and Djibouti, or Cambodia and Thailand. It doesn't sanction this shit. When the Sri Lankan government wiped out the Tamil Tigers in 2011, it wasn't. I mean, they wiped them out. They committed genocide, something that's never really been investigated. They didn't ask the UN's permission. The government of Sudan has not asked the UN's permission to have the civil war that they're having at the moment, which is killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people. This action has been labelled law enforcement. We are taking a foreign criminal. But the foreign criminal was someone who is the leader of a country, and although the rules-based order of the world, if I can argue that it never really existed, it was just a thing that kept smaller countries in check, while the bigger countries could kind of do what they wanted. It was a thing for a very long time, since at least 1648. It was an agreement, although it was a gentleman's agreement, that you didn't just go in and kidnap the leader of a foreign country and kill them, or put them on trial, or put them in jail, whatever. That was seen as bad form, I guess. But apparently no more. US troops operating within a sovereign state without consent, although that is something that's up for argument, because it might be the case, it may very well be the case, that they do have consent. They did get consent. We don't know. Because if Maduro's own people turned against him and were like, yeah, we'll get rid of this motherfucker, right? They're not going to say that, are they, to the people of Venezuela or to anyone? They're not going to admit it. They're not going to say, yeah, we decided that we didn't like him anymore. He was too unpopular, so we decided to get rid of him because he's making us all look bad. He's making us all look like a bunch of fucking lunatics. But the distinction between arresting a criminal and regime change has been deliberately blurred. And it's interesting because I don't think there's going to be a regime change. I think his number 2 has already been sworn in as president. It's going to be the same party, the same people, just like when Chavez died in 2013, I think Chavez died. Maduro just took over and the same regime continued. I think that's going to happen with the only change to the subjugation of the Venezuelan people is going to be that they're not going to become less subjugated. It's going to be the oil. America's going to get access to the oil. That was the deal. We will get rid of Maduro and we will normalize relations with you as long as we can have the deal. And people in Venezuela, who have been suffering for many years under the Maduro government, and before then under the Chavez government, which was the same government, are going to be not any better off at all by this. They may think, yeah, great, Maduro's gone. And that is objectively, all things considered, a good thing because he was a tyrant. He was an absolute gobshite. But at the same time, for your average Venezuelan on the streets, I don't think that this is going to make that much material difference. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for money to start flowing into Venezuela like I don't know what. And then suddenly, everyone's happy and they go, have enough food. And no one's going on a Maduro diet where they lose loads of weight because there's no fucking food. But I think realistically, if change is going to come to Venezuela, it has to come from within. Like in most places, if you can have as many rows with your own family as you like, but if someone else comes along and says, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort this all out for you," and you're like, "Who are you? Someone else, someone who's not part of your family." And what will happen in that case is your family tends to clan together to tell the outsider to fuck off. And that's just in the family. That's just in a village, a little tribe, or a city. And these outside interferers coming in, like the EU giving Liverpool £1.9 billion worth of Objective 1 funding. How bloody dare they? People don't like it when outsiders come along and tell them what to do. They'd rather fight amongst themselves. Just human nature. But but what I wanted to talk about really this morning is like I said, the illusion of the rules-based order. International law has never constrained great powers equally. Enforcement has always been selective and political, and rules function as diplomacy for the strong and discipline for the weak. It's to keep the smaller countries in line. And violations are tolerated when they're committed by allies, in the same way that when people go to a football match and they see that one of the players on the team they support blatantly fouling somebody else, they will shout, and they do this. I've been to football matches, I've seen it myself. They will shout, "Come on, ref!" And I'm like, yeah, that they committed the foul. They literally tripped someone up. They literally kicked someone in the face. I mean, it was really obvious watching. You're watching on TV, and it's really, and the people go, "Oh, come on!" But when it's someone from the other team does exactly the same thing, it's red card, and there's no difference there between when you're at a football match and international politics. It's like, oh well, America's done this. Oh, okay then. We didn't try and stop. Oh, we didn't join America in Vietnam, although the Australians did. We didn't roundly condemn it in the way that we should have really done, because it was a ridiculous prospect that America would, force the Vietnamese to become the state that they wanted the Vietnamese people to set up, which they never did. America lost that one at the cost of thousands of American soldiers. It's why Russia will never succeed in Ukraine. They may as well just fucking give up now. All these people, over 1 million people, have been killed or injured. Russian soldiers. So they might not actually be from Russia. So let's just say Russian soldiers, or soldiers working for the Russian state. Over 1 million of them since the beginning of the war 4 years ago. They've either died or been injured, and that is an insane figure. That is just horrific. And yet it's all for one man. It's all for Putin to keep Putin in power. It's not for the people of Russia. It's not for the people of Ukraine. And the fact is, and as I was talking about with Scott last night, it is very, very hard for an outside country, especially in this day and age as well, to go into a place and try and take it over, because everyone in that place will fucking hate you. Everyone in that place will fucking hate you. And given half a chance, they'll take a pop at you. So you've got to be continuously on guard. You've got to be continuously worried about someone putting a bullet in your head or firing an RPG at you or destroying, sabotage, blowing things up, wrecking things. Constant vigilance costs a lot of money. That's why in Gaza, the Israeli government would rather just kill everyone in Gaza than actually rule over it. They don't really want to rule over it because they know it's very, very, very difficult to rule over a group of people who fucking hate you. And the same thing is true in Ukraine. They fucking hate the Russians. They absolutely fucking despise the Russians for all of the horrors that they have caused. That they've kidnapped tens of thousands of Ukrainian children who were being sexually abused in Russia. Kidnapped these children to be sexually abused by Russians, by Russian men in Russia. And like, how can you forgive that? They tortured civilians in Bucha. They tortured people to death in front of their families. Like, how can you get past that? How can you, that was a bad thing they did 5 years ago, but, I like that they're ruling over me now. It's never going to happen. And then they might have a shock and awe, take over the capital, all that kind of shit. But the reality is there will always be resistance against it. And that's why the Nazis would have never won. When you see these things like, what if the Nazis won the war? They could have never won the war because the people of France would continue to sabotage their operations in France. They wouldn't stop. Once Hitler achieved all of his imperialistic ambitions and took over Great Britain and took over Russia, it's not like all the British people would be like, oh, this is great, this. I fucking love being told what to do by a German tyrant. We don't even like being told what to do by our own people from this country who speak English as their first language. We moan about that incessantly. And these dickheads who've got 80,000 signatures on a petition are like, we need to have a regime change. We need to get rid of Keir Starmer. We need to have another election. It's like 80,000 people. Are you kidding me? Over 5 million people, over 6 million people signed a petition to get us back into the EU. That was ignored because, you don't like democracy. Why do you hate democracy? Why do you hate democracy? Well, it doesn't count when they do it, is it? Oh, it's a really mistake when we voted for Labour last year. Okay. Can we have another election in a few years' time? We'll correct that mistake if necessary. Yeah, okay. Can we do that with a referendum? No, that's it. It's locked in forever. Any good news, Graham? Yeah, I guess so. Let me think of some good news. Thank you very much for the super chat there. There's some good movies coming out this year. There's some new albums coming out. Ladytron is bringing out a new album in March. That looks really good. Yeah, there's always wine. We're a few days into January, so January will be over sooner. The days are getting longer. Some places have had snow, which is quite magical for some people. It's inconvenient for others, but for some, it's quite magical, especially for kids. We've got this wonderful community that we've built together, which is kind of great. That we meet up each morning and go off on one about the shit the world is in. So, that's nice, isn't it? It's all right. Martin Harrow there. Let's get Dizz's party started. Thanks very much for the £2 super chat there, my friend. That is very, very kind of you. But yeah, I would say that when it comes to the rules-based order, as they call it, I think moral language masks these raw power calculations that have always been there. Like, let's not pretend that Iraq was about anything other than regime change and getting the oil. They didn't give a fuck about changing it to a democracy, though. That was just a ploy. It was a lie. It was a thing they set up to say, oh yeah. What we really care about is giving these people democracy. They didn't give a fuck about that. They cared about the oil. At least with Trump, to give him some credit. And I don't like giving Trump credit at the best of times, but at least he's honest. At least he say, yes, about the oil. And people go, no, he's going to lose loads of support. I think not. When the polls are published, I don't know if any are out yet. I bet there's an uptick. I bet there's an uptick of people because people like people who take decisive action. Unfortunately, we live in a world where the most likely people to take decisive action are psychopaths, which isn't great. But they respond well to actual things happening rather than things happening and, your likes of, I don't know, Wes Streeting saying, I'm not going to give a running thing. So yeah, what was I going to say? What happens next? The fiction, in a way, of this new rules-based order still matters. The shared norms reduce the frequency of open conflict. Predictable behavior allows for planning and deterrence, and legal frameworks provide an off-ramp during crises, and even broken systems are cheaper, as I've mentioned before, than permanent coercion. Permanent coercion is so difficult. There's a really good clip from the TV show Andor, which is my TV show of the year last year. It's absolutely fucking fantastic. But in the season 1, when the kid from that episode of Black Mirror was reading his manifesto, and he says that the fascism, in effect, is brittle. It requires constant effort. It breaks because it's so unnatural for people to be subjugated, allow themselves to be subjugated by a power that they do not recognize as legitimate. And so even the Empire, and just go on a little tangent here about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which was pretty shit. I agree that it was pretty shit. And there were things definitely in The Last Jedi, which was the second part of it, which was just really bad ideas in there. But one idea I did like was it seemed to be building up to the democratization of the Force. This idea that it's not just the chosen one. Nobody's that special. There's no prophecies. There's no foregone conclusion because a baby was born on a particular date in a particular place under a particular star. None of that. None of that. It was just everyone in the galaxy rising up all at once and saying, no, we don't want the Empire or the New Order, whatever the fuck they called it, right? And I thought, oh, wow, I thought that's what it was building up to for the last episode 9. Obviously, it didn't, because J.J. Abrams took it back over and they reverted back to form as best they could, and it was just a fucking disaster. But I like that idea. I like the idea that it doesn't matter if these motherfuckers have got Death Stars and overwhelming firepower. That people will never allow themselves to be subjugated for that long, especially, and this is the important part of this, if they have tasted freedom. If they know what it's like to be able to go on the internet and say whatever comes into their head. If they know that they can write things on the internet and they won't, as long as they're not telling people to go and kill people, that they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Viper Scott there, £2 super chat. Thank you very much for Diz's Confetti fix. One less to get Confetti. And thank you. And Colin Baker, £2 super chat. I've woken up, so we'll better get Diz party started. Oh, fantastic. No Carter USM fans then. Lol. What is that? Is that a Gallstones reference? I don't remember Carter singing about Gallstones. Plum. But yeah. Oh, there you go. To the north of Kathmandu. Oh, there you go. There's little children sniffing glue. Do you like that, Plum? I knew you would. Okay, so yeah, like I say, even broken systems are cheaper and more economically viable than having this permanent coercion. And removing that. Hang on. Before I go on, Saz has just dropped £2 in the super chat. Thank you very much. Because you know what that means? It means it's time to fire the confetti cannon. Oh, yes. It's all the confetti. All the confetti. That's good to print. Okay, cool. So we've fired the confetti cannon. Now the goal has been achieved. And I suppose I could do another one, couldn't I? I could do another one if I want to, if I so desire. But yeah, so how power really works, right, is people have, going back to John Locke, the philosopher, going back to Thomas Hobbes, actually. Thomas Hobbes wrote a book called Leviathan. And if you ever study politics, political science, you have to learn about this, political philosophy. And this is the idea of the social contract. It's the idea that you give up certain rights, and certain inalienable rights, to a greater power in return for protection, in return for being protected by an army, being protected from ignorance, maybe being protected from disease, being protected from thieves, criminals, robbers, murderers, rapists, gangs. And so we give up certain rights in order to this is the social contract, to our society. And in return, society provides us with things that make life worth living. Without it, as Hobbes said, life would be nasty, brutish, and short, which for many people, for many years in this world, they have been. Not for people living in, small tribal community where, there was no outsiders coming and wrecking stuff. They had rules, they had regulations, they had a rules-based order. But as the world became, more travelable and things moved, and the Romans tried to, they had their empire, and you could look to becoming Roman, but the Roman Empire crumbled from the inside. It wasn't defeated really by the Visigoths or whoever went and sacked Rome whenever it was, but it was more to do with the fact that they overextended their powers. They just couldn't keep all of these different places all over the world, all over the then known world in Europe and the North Africa and Asia. They couldn't keep all the people in check. There was just constant rebellions. Again, it was costing them so much money. They would train someone up to be a consul, as a regional governor, and they'll go out to somewhere and they'll get killed, and they'll have to train somebody else up. No one wanted to do the job because they thought, I get killed. You couldn't pay people enough money. You couldn't give them enough fucking gold to go and do this stuff. Same thing happened in lots of empires. There's a possibility that the Inca Empire overstretched itself, and that's what led to its collapse 100 years before Columbus turned up. And then you've got the British Empire. The British Empire wasn't defeated by Hitler. It was defeated by the fact that the people who we were subjugating didn't want to be subjugated anymore. And what was one of the big drivers of the fall of empire was actually the technology that was used to make the empire happen in the first place. It was the things like telecommunications, the telegraph, first of all, but then going into radio and then eventually into TV. If you can gather an entire group of people around a television and show them, or cinema, and show them what life is like in the free West, they're not going to continue on being under someone else's yoke. Of course they're not going to do that. And so, this is why the rules-based order after World War II was brought in. It was always a myth. It was always a mirage, but it was more effective and better, like economically and for keeping the general peace, than having constant wars and imperial struggles and coercion of smaller countries to bring them online with bigger countries next to them. And especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall, this is really true. And what is interesting about the EU is, in a way, its strength is that it's a rules-based order. That is a strength in terms of peace and trade. But its weakness, when it has to deal with someone like Trump, who's just unpredictable, or someone like Putin, who doesn't give a fuck, and they can't mount the kind of challenge to those motherfuckers that they should be able to do. They should be able to say, hey, no, fucking wind your neck in, you daft pricks. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to fuck you over. But we can't do that. There's no EU army. If NATO has to do something, we have to have the Americans on board as well, or NATO falls apart. What if America invades Greenland? It's just a bit grim, isn't it? It's just a bit grim. And Nick and Diff is saying, I feel like given current events, there won't be time for that. Can see things getting desperate, especially if he invades Greenland. I think if Trump invades Greenland, it'll be the end of Trump. I'm not saying he's not going to, because he's mad enough to try it. But I think that will be the end of Trump, in terms of, like, no one's going to stick up for him. No one's going to be there saying, oh, this is great. What this is a good thing. I just can't see it happening. The average height of poor people in the Roman Empire shot up when it collapsed, so they're actually doing materially better. Yeah. Well, the Roman Empire, Andy said it. I was going to say this. Roman Empire was built on conquest and tribute. I was going to say taxes. Yeah, but that's what tribute is, isn't it? Indeed. Yes, indeed you do. It's always been silent on here. Today is no quiet. Today is a quiet day. Yeah. If you've always been a bit skeptical of America, then this has been coming since the 80s, says Urbane Legends. The issue of Mad Austrian, it had some racist madness going on, and he was always going to fail following it. And one angry pagan says, wish it was snowing down here. Best we got a light dusting with a fuckload of frost. Talking about the weather, as we British people like to talk about the weather. We like talking about the weather, god damn it, because it changes. Sorry, Yaxi, did I read that? Today has been silent. Today is not a quiet day. Oh, sorry, Yak taxi. I like the idea of having a taxi for Yanks. Blue Badger, good point. And then, social contract broken. That's why I'm listening to music. Okay, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. There's always music. There's always dancing. There's always wine. Maybe not this time of the morning, though. That's probably a problem. Power is the... having a country like America, and for all we knocked America for in the past, it did push this idea of a rules-based order that it ignored when convenient for America. Often, we saw that in Vietnam, we saw that in the invasion of Grenada, the invasion of Panama, the invasion of Afghanistan. However, generally speaking, it kept everyone else in line. It was like, we have to have these orders. The issue here is now all these countries, and not just the big ones, it's not just Xi in China, it's not just Putin in Russia, it's countries, these little countries around the world who have a bit of a territorial beef with their neighbor, who are looking at this going, oh, right, okay, so what's stopping us from going and taking that land next to us? The UN's not going to do anything. They might, condemn us. They might. What do they? What does the UN do? It makes a message, doesn't it? It sends a message. The UN might send us a message. Oh no, okay. We might get a strongly worded letter from the General Secretary saying that was very naughty. What's actually going to happen? In the past, it was like, don't invade your neighbors. Don't fuck things up. And we saw this when Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990. The Allied powers came together and said, "No, fuck off, get out of this country," and they did. After the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, same in Yugoslavia when that broke up into 7 different countries. I know 7 now, but it wasn't back then. And there was people being massacred en masse in Mostar and in Sarajevo, in what's now Bosnia and Herzegovina. That was a point where NATO went, fuck this shit, and got involved. When the people in Kosovo were being massacred, the ethnic cleansing going on by the forces from Belgrade in Serbia, that was a point where the KFOR, the NATO troops, went in and said, oi, pack that in. Now, if we've got no legs to stand on when they turn around and say, well, you did it, that is going to be seriously disruptive for the world. And there are border skirmishes going on all the time. Look at what's happening in Kashmir between Pakistan and India, and also China. Don't forget, China has a claim over part of Kashmir as well. And then you've got three nuclear-armed powers, by the way. Jesus, and then you've got what's happening between Thailand and Cambodia right now. In the northern border of Cambodia, there is the people are dying. People are getting killed in the border regions as skirmishes take place. So this is the sort of the difficulty that we're going to have going forward, because it's all very well saying, smaller countries, you can't do what we can do. We can go ahead and do this. And like the US has, broken its own rules in the past to do what it wanted to do. Don't forget, it did have quite a lot of international approval to go into Afghanistan, of all places, after 9/11. It didn't have any international approval, really, of going into going into Iraq. I mean, I know Britain was part of the coalition of the willing, but France wasn't. Germany wasn't. They're like, fuck this shit. They're not going into that. What the fuck's that got to do with 9/11? So yeah, when we talk about international law, which is the meat of what I want to talk about today, international law, it's kind of a nonsense. It's who signs up to it. Now, who is signed up to war crimes and to trial war crimes in The Hague? Not Russia, not the US. They're not signed up to the International Criminal Court. We can't arrest an American and take them to the International Criminal Court because America does not recognize the International Criminal Court. We do. Britain does. Other countries do, but they don't. And so, law is often retrofitted, international law especially, to justify the outcomes. And courts in international rules-based order, they actually follow power, not the other way around. Power is not constrained by these courts. The powers do what they fucking want to. And if anything, it's the smaller countries that have leaders that have ever taken to task over decisions they made while in power. Airbane Legends, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Chances Trump takes Scotland over a golf club. Very, very low, I think. Very low there, Airbane Legends. I can't see that ever happening. Yeah, funny though. To go back to what we were saying about Greenland, right? That would be, because it would be so unpopular in America. Not at first. At first, what would happen? America has overwhelming force. They would turn up in the 3 months of the year when it's, after May, when it's kind of not easy. I mean, Greenland's never easy. Lots of it is in the Arctic Circle. But, it's easier. So you'd have 3 months where it looks like America's got the upper hand. And then the insurgency would start in earnest, and American soldiers will die. American airmen and women, American sailors, American soldiers, American Marines, they would die. And those coffins coming back, Trump can try and cover up the news footage, the footage and the news coming in. But at the end of the day, there's going to be ways to get around that. People are going to see it in America one way or another. And a lot of Americans are going to be like, why the fuck have we invaded Greenland? Why are American soldiers dying? Trump was supposed to be the guy who ended the wars, who didn't start any wars, who didn't make American soldiers die on someone else's soil, which is something that the Republicans like to do for a very, very fucking long time. I was talking to a Trumper years ago. This is when Trump was, I think it was after he'd been kicked out the first time. And they were saying, oh, he never started any wars. And I was like, yeah, neither did Obama. Now did Biden? Did Biden start anyone? Didn't start any fucking wars. I mean, he continued the wars that have been started by Republicans. He didn't start any. Did Clinton start any wars? Don't think so. I know that, that NATO were involved in what was happening in Yugoslavia, but he started any wars. I don't think he did he have an invasion? Did he? I can't remember. I mean, you could possibly argue that the Black Hawk Down situation in Somalia in 1993 was under Clinton, but realistically, when you talk about American politicians starting wars, it's not always, but it's by and large been the Republicans. So Trump is supposed to be a departure from that. It's why a lot of Republicans sort of defend him. He never started any wars. I'm like, well, if he invades Greenland, then he's going to that's going to blow up in his face. It really is. But if he does invade Greenland, I don't think it's going to start World War III. Touch wood. Because I just don't see the Allied powers going, oh, that's it. The Allied powers minus America going, right, we're gonna fight you now. We're gonna yeah. Can you imagine like British soldiers shooting at American soldiers in the Arctic tundra? It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? The Greenlanders, the Danish might, but yeah, only if the Americans start killing Danes, then the Danish are going to be like, fuck this shit. And we will give support to the Danish troops over there and the Greenlander troops. But we're not, I really doubt we get directly involved. And also, I think that the rhetoric coming out of the government in such a situation. We'd be like, yeah, obviously this is not this isn't great. While quietly supporting Denmark in the background. O'Bain, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. They are 100% going to try and take Greenland after the response from Europe, and they will take it. Europe won't fight back, and we will be in trouble. So yeah, I'll go with you on some of that. I don't think it's 100%, but I do think it is likely that Trump's mad enough to try and take Greenland. Right? I think that they will be ultimately unsuccessful. It'll take a long time, perhaps, because America does have overwhelming firepower. America's very good at winning wars, very bad at winning the peace. Very bad at winning the peace. And even if it takes 2, 3, 20, 30 years to get rid of the Yanks, they will eventually get rid of the Yanks because they're not from there. They're not part of the ethnic makeup of Greenland, and the Greenlanders won't tolerate it. They won't stand for it. And also, it's a bit of a shit place to get posted. I mean, having to go to Iraq was bad enough, but like going somewhere where it's absolutely fucking frozen, all your guns are going to jam, and your fucking weapons aren't going to work because they're not designed to work at minus 40. You know, you're freezing your fucking balls off, and there's no fucking fuel because all the people who live there have hidden it and smashed up any kind of petrol generators that they don't fucking work. I mean, so you have to carry everything with you through the snow, and there's no roads, there's no fucking roads. It's just Arctic fucking tundra and forests. It's going to be very fucking difficult to maintain a hold over the long term in Greenland. But what an invasion of Greenland, what will probably happen in that case, and why I think Urbane Legends is completely correct when Urbane says we will be in trouble, we absolutely will be in trouble, is that it will lead to the end of NATO. NATO will disintegrate. We might get something taking its place without America in it, something very similar, but without America. But obviously, America will be no longer welcome in the Club of Nations if it effectively invades the sovereign territory of another member nation of NATO. And that is the green light to Putin. Now, I don't want to get too doom and gloom about this because Putin's pretty fucked. And although I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility of America giving loads of money from American taxpayers to Putin to kill Europeans because they're sick fucks, these people who are running these countries, Trump and Putin. The Russian economy at the moment is absolutely fucked. It is beyond fucked. Like, you look at the numbers, you're like, I don't even know how it's sustaining itself to this point. It's got loads of oil. Yeah, it's got one of the biggest reserves of oil in the world, but getting that oil out of Russia is becoming a lot more difficult, not just because of the sanctions, but also because the Ukrainians have been very, very effective in 2025, going after the oil infrastructure, going after these refineries, letting the Russians slowly fucking, put these refineries back together after them, suffering this damage, repairing them, and then as soon as they're repaired, another volley of attacks, and they have to repair them again. Taking these this stuff offline is devastating to the Russian economy. And the Russian, they've lost thousands of tanks. They can't build stuff fast enough for how fast they're losing it on the front line. I read a story yesterday about they had like an automatic an automated machine gun. A bit like in Breaking Bad at the end, sorry, spoilers, where he's got the machine gun in the back of the fucking car. It's a bit like that. They've got this machine gun, right? And he held the line for 40 fucking days because any time a Russian came, just fucking shot them. And it was automated. No Ukrainians had to fucking die. And the attrition rate of Russians, and I know they can afford to send thousands and thousands of troops to the front line. They're just getting mashed up. They're just getting fucking ground into mincemeat. So yeah, whereas there is a worry that a real, genuine concern that Vladimir Putin will try and go through Belarus into Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, try and make Lithuania in particular and the north of Poland, the northeast of Poland. You've got a little exclave of Russia called Kaliningrad, right? And the being able to move to Kaliningrad is very important for for the Russians being able to get in and out of Kaliningrad. But it is difficult. They've got to go round all these other countries, all of whom are members of NATO now. So that's Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They've got to go round all of those from St. Petersburg. They've got to go round like this and try and get into this exclave. They can't go over land anymore without loads of permits and permissions because that land is owned, that road is owned by the Lithuanians. They have to go through someone else's country to get to this exclave of Kaliningrad. So I can see them wanting to change the situation there. I also see them wanting to change the situation in Transnistria, which is part of Moldova. It's the eastern part of Moldova, and it is a breakaway republic within Moldova, which still has the hammer and sickle on their flag, and they still get their support from Russia. Although the last couple of years, because Russia's been so laser focused on its special military operation in Ukraine, we're going to see we're seeing the people getting less and less stuff from the Russian state. I think they have some kind of universal basic income that if you live there, you got like $10,000 a year or something just for being there, because the Russians wants to keep propping it up because it was useful to them as a staging post. One of the things that they really want to do in Ukraine is they want to take Kherson in the south, in the middle of the country, and then there's Odessa, which is near the border with Moldova and Romania. They want to take that and create a land corridor to Transnistria, which allows them to then attack Ukraine from the west. So Ukraine will be fighting on two fronts, not just the eastern front, but the western front as well. That was the dream. That was what they were trying to do over the last few years once they realized that trying to take Kyiv was impossible. And that's something that they still might try and do, but I don't think they've got the money. It comes down to funding, and I think that although America's funding for Ukraine is drying up, Europe will continue to fund Ukraine for as long as it takes because it's in Europe's interest to do so. It will cost them less to fund Ukraine's ongoing war of attrition against Russia. Russia took less than 1%, 0.8% of the land of Ukraine last year, like 0.8. In fact, I think that's since the summer offensive when the Ukrainians took back Kherson, etc. I think since then the Russians have only pushed back 0.8% of the territory. It's been fuck all. Someone worked out that when they say they're moving at a snail's pace, actually a snail would move a lot faster. Ms. Paula Thomas, £5 super chat, thank you. The EU Safe group is a pro-NATO substitute with 2 extra members in Australia and New Zealand, which would be great. I mean, we talked about that before, but Australia and New Zealand, New Zealand's a very small country. And Australia's, by population, what's Australia now? 28 million, if that. They do have a lot of strategic value, and also a lot of this is to do with intelligence. I'm waiting for Tommy 10 Names Patriots to step up and take on Russia and the US. Laugh my ass off. Says you, yeah, they're never going to do that. Urbane, even if the tritium has decayed and maybe still a 50 kiloton weapon, is anyone going to fire on Russia to defend Ukraine? Yeah, I think they might. Andy. I really think that the military experts see Russia as a lot weaker than Russia wants the media and the people they control in the media and the social media they control to think. They won't. They pay. We know they pay. We know that the Russians pay social media people, like people on YouTube, to say that Ukraine's fucked and Russia's going to win the day, and it's just not true. It's just not true. Donny thinks nuclear is an option. Can I comprehend IT and thinks it's a beautiful word for him, like coal. Indeed. Odessa from Crimea and I can't pronounce that. Sorry, Zaporizhia. Mind you, according to the Bible, it took 40 years to trundle around 200 miles. Yes, it did, around the Sinai Peninsula. They were just looking for a place that didn't tell them to fuck off. It just took a while. I guess they had to have kids. That's what I thought about the 40 years in the desert. They must have just had kids because they needed more people. They didn't have enough people. To say a human habitation back then was like 100 people, and they were like, "Oh, we've only got 100 people ourselves. So if we try and take over this habitation, they're going to take us on. Or we've got 50 people, or whatever. So we've got to have kids. And they have kids and wait till the kids are old enough. I mean, once you're 20, you can have kids, yourself. So maybe 2 generations. And they're like, okay, we've got. Although I suppose babies fighting wouldn't be a great idea. But yeah. A-Bane Legends, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The boomers who felt inferior to their parents who fought World War II finally get the glory now. They won't have to fight, typical of their behaviour. Not all boomers. Hashtag not all boomers. Says A-Bane Legends, yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's something weird as well, right? I don't think, in my lifetime anyway, that I've noticed, and I might be wrong, that we've ever had such a time of people feeling at one with their generational cohort. Like, people who are millennials feel like millennials. People who are boomers seem like boomers, and there is an othering that has been going on. And there's this battle between the millennials who feel like they've had their future stolen from them by the baby boomers, who, I don't know if that's a bad argument. Not all boomers, obviously, but like, boomers do vote right wing. They vote for right wing governments. They voted for Trump. They voted for Brexit. They vote for Nigel Farage. En masse. Like, we're not talking. And I know that not 100% of boomers voted for these motherfuckers or these motherfucking things, but an overwhelming majority of them did. Whereas an overwhelming majority of millennials, and now the younger generation Z, General Zod, they certainly did not. They certainly do not support these right-wing fascist motherfucking ideals. They don't obsess over the war. They don't, go everywhere draped in a fucking, Spitfire flag going on and on about a war they never fucking fought in. And Viper Scott, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Oh, that means that. Ooh, Viper Scott, you know what that means? Yeah, you do know what that means because you've done the confetti symbols. It means that we have to release the confetti again. Woohoo! Second time this morning. Awesome. Thank you. I've got my spine. I've got my Orange Crush from the REM song Orange Crush off Green. Was that on Green? Might have been on Green. The album. This boomer acoustic game. Thank you, Colin. I thought I was going to get into trouble there. But yeah, the generational cohorts have never been as strong or as different as they have been. So, generally speaking, throughout political history, especially since the franchise was extended to include women, and then it was extended again in the 80s to the 60s to include people who are 18. Generally, people voted the same way as their parents for a long time. If you had a Tory mum and a Tory dad, you ended up being a Tory. You had a Labour mum and a Labour dad, you ended up being Labour. Like with football, you grew up in an Everton house, you supported Everton. You grew up in the Liverpool house, you supported Liverpool. That's not the case anymore. You've got a real schism there where actually millennials are becoming more progressive as they get older. A lot of millennials now coming into their 40s, and this is just the reality of it, okay? Like James O'Brien never tires of saying, it's not an opinion, it's just counting. It's just noticing these generational shifts that haven't really happened before. And I think there is a lot of resentment building up in the younger generations against the older generations, which is not good. It's really not good for social cohesion. And these loudmouth boomers, and not all boomers are these people, but the loudmouth boomers, victim blaming younger generations by saying, well, you just need to stop watching Netflix and just stop eating avocado toast, and then you'll be able to afford that fucking house. When you're on £27,000 a year and the cheapest house you can get in your area is £400,000, and you can't even afford to save up for the deposit because all of your £27,000 that you earn each year is being spent on rent, on electricity, on water, on council tax, on transport costs, which are through the roof, leaving you pennies at the end of each month to spend on having fun. You can't go to a gig because even the cheapest gig now is 30 fucking quid. Once, Ticketmaster take their cut, you can't afford to go to the cinema. It's 18 quid to go to the cinema. 18 fucking quid to go. Are you kidding me? 18 quid. That's what we want. Oh, fucking hell. Did you make the movie yourself? I mean, what? When I was a kid, it was £2.50. It was £2.50. Don't tell me that films didn't make a fuckload of money in the 90s. I paid £2.50 to go and see fucking Titanic. Stop buying coffee. Yeah, stop buying coffee and you'll be able to afford a house. So when people say that and then those clips become viral, it's like, maybe they're doing it on purpose because they're sick. The people who do this are just sick, sadistic fucks. But like with a lot of things, right? They're not making their own life any easier or any better. Because back in the day, for every retired person, there was like 8 people working. Now it's getting down to like every retiree, there's like 3 people working. It's going to go down to 2 soon. So for every retiree, for every person who is not working because they're old and they don't feel like they should have to work anymore because they've already worked for 40 years of their life, there's going to be only 2 people working. And those 2 people working have to pay to keep that other person alive. There will come a point where they'll be like, fuck this shit. I mean, fuck it. Especially as I don't think I'm going to get a pension. I do not believe it's going to happen. I don't have a private pension. I've never been able to afford to save up for one. I have no savings. I know I've got the island in Panama, which one day I might sell and might be able to get a bit of money out of that, which I hope it's like that's like my nest egg. But that's only because I won a competition. That's not that I didn't get that through working hard. I just got that through sheer fluke and audacity, which is, some of the awesome things I've done in my life has just been sheer fucking fluke. Because I do believe in coincidences, they happen all the time. Nick is saying, my folks are boomers, they voted remain, but all their mates voted leave. It caused some friction in their friendships. Yeah, I bet it did. Printworks Manchester Cinema, about £9.99 per seat. Yeah, but I mean, you take your kids to go and see it. That's 40 quid. It's 40 fucking quid. Fucking crazy. So anyway, we'll get back to what the main topic of what I was supposed to be talking about today is. The legal side of things of the old world order is over. The rules-based system is effectively over now. We're entering a brave new world, but we'll see. Let's talk about some of the legal gymnastics that has been brought to bear in this, which I knew would happen because the American president's allowed to do what the fuck they want. Like, the American president just has way too much power, just anyway, not constrained by anyone or anything. The head of state, also the head of the government, also the head of the armed forces, also the head of the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Justice, and the Pentagon and the Coast Guard and Homeland Security and ICE and they are just wearing far too many hats, and now the chickens come home to roost because we're seeing what happens when a madman gets elected, and this was a decision taken by the American people to put this fucking lunatic, this sex pest, this paedophile back into power because they wanted to see what happens. But this operation was framed as criminal justice. And, sovereign immunity is dismissed via contested legitimacy claim. And don't forget, Trump on Saturday was going, we destroyed their sovereignty. Like it was the biggest assault against sovereignty ever, I think his words were. And this is US domestic law being projected globally to say, right, we're going to, if you commit a crime in your own country, we're going to arrest you and put you on trial in our country. And similar standards are not applied to rivals of America, people that they don't feel like they can take on. They're never going to do this to Vladimir Putin for the blood that he has on his hands. And all the damage that he's done to his country and the world. But, there's precedent here. Panama 1989, when Manuel Noriega was blasted out of the Vatican embassy in Panama City. They blasted bad rock music at like U2, Bon Jovi and stuff for 3 days until he gave up, and then he stood trial in America. But it was that set a precedent for doing this kind of thing. The Iraq uh, uh, the debacle that was Iraq after 2003. It just shows regime change can happen, I guess, but without aftermath planning, it all goes to shit. Same way that if you've ever watched or read the book Charlie Wilson's War, like this was an American project, secret project via Israel somehow and Pakistan to supply the Mujahideen who were fighting against the Soviet invaders of Afghanistan in the 1980s to supply them with weapons. And don't forget, they were the good guys. There was a fucking Rambo where he was in Afghanistan, wasn't there? And he was fighting with the Mujahideen. There was a James Bond. I think it's Living Daylights, is it? Where he's fighting with the Mujahideen. You know, like they were the good guys fighting against the evil Soviets who had invaded their country. And was there any money given to the aftermath to rebuild this country full of angry young men with Kalashnikovs? No, there fucking wasn't. And what happened? The country descended into civil war, because of course it did. And you know, what happened in Afghanistan when the Americans invaded, or the Allies invaded, including the UK, it just shows the limits of military dominance, because you have to keep putting not just money, but lives on the line to try and keep control of a country, of a territory, of an area that doesn't fucking want you there. And you know, one death for someone else's place is too much for most people to fucking handle. Like, why are we dying in someone else's frozen, barren wastelands? Oh, because of the mineral wealth. The mineral, we can get the oil, we can get the mineral wealth. It's like, that's got to filter down to your average American who's paying over the odds. Now, Trump is a dickhead, and one of the things he thinks is if he can get this Venezuelan oil, then he can drive down the cost of petrol, cost of fuel in America. That's what he wants to do, because then he can show to Americans, it's only $1 a gallon. Petrol's really cheap in America anyway. But it's only $1 a gallon now. It's only like 79p for a gallon of fucking fuel, which is like, what, 4 litres or something in a gallon? Someone's going to tell me the exact amount of litres you fit in a gallon. But it's, you know, they get a lot of bang for their buck in America. But they're used to it. It's a big America, you know, it's a big car dominated society. In fact, I would argue that America's dominant species is the car. It's not the people. They're very much an afterthought. But yeah, the Latin America still carries, you know, scars from these interventions of America when it has gone in for, you know, oil, natural resources. I've talked before about the war between Bolivia and Paraguay in the 1930s, which was backed. Each side was backed by a different oil company, because they thought there was oil in this, it was a Chaco region between the two countries, and you know, thousands of people fucking died fighting for these foreign oil companies, and there was no oil. But yeah, if Trump thinks that this oil is going to be just readily available, it's not. That these the non-donkeys and the oil extraction areas and rigs and oil rigs, that they need a lot of fucking repair work doing to them. It's going to take a few years to get these things online. And the way that the oil companies work at the moment is OPEC sets the price. That is a cartel, doesn't it? That's not America. It's like all the other oil creators. It's like Saudi Arabia and Russia. They make oil worth what they think it's worth. But what Trump is doing is creating this glut in the market, right? Where we're going to have just too much oil. Even if he's successful in what he wants to do with Venezuela, get their bunker oil, the shit fucking oil that they've got. So I say shit, I mean, it's just the most filthy kind of oil, the heaviest oil there is. Over to America, over to the refineries and refine it, and then everyone's going to have cheap petrol. But it's not exactly going to work like that, because the dynamics are, the price of oil collapses. Some countries are going to collapse because they're based on the price of oil. Like very much the UAE still, and Saudi Arabia especially, and Russia, they are very dependent on keeping that price of oil up. So is Iran, so is Iraq. There's a lot of Angola, Nigeria, Libya. There's a lot of countries that absolutely depend on the price of oil being over a certain threshold. And if America brings them down, you get a lot of fucking trouble all over the world. Maybe that's what he wants, because you know what they'll create? Refugees. And what do fascists fucking love? They love refugees. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. A significant proportion of men under 30 voted for Trump too. Also some Palestinian Americans who felt betrayed by Biden. Yes, Paula, yeah. Thanks for the super chat, but I'd never said that it was 100%. I never said that 100% of young people voted for this and 100% of old people voted for that. So the overwhelming majority. The words I used was overwhelming majority. And every time we say this, we get the not all men thing. Like, yeah, I know that not all men have raped someone, but I can understand why women are scared of all men. I just can, because there's a potential there, isn't there? 318 Ice Spoons. Thank you very much for the £10 super chat. I wonder about the future of the Falklands, oil potential in the surrounding areas, territorial claim by Argentine President Javier Milei. Trumpenstein already gave him $40 billion and will support him again. Yeah, that's a good conversation to have. If you ever go to Argentina, they treat the Falklands, or the Islas Malvinas as they call it, that is a source of it's almost the glue that holds the country together. The reason why there was an invasion in 1982, I think it was more to do with the fact that the military junta that was running the country at the time was on its last legs, and this was a Hail Mary. It was a one last throw of the dice to confer legitimacy to that junta by saying, listen, we're going to take back these islands that should be ours. And the politics of grievance works really fucking well. And you only need to go to Venezuela and see the maps that claim more than half, 2/3 of their neighbor Guyana, or the maps in Guatemala, which lay claim over Belize. Grievance. These people have taken this thing from us, and we need to make sure that all school children know that this thing was taken from us, and one day we will get it back. You know, that dream of the future, and this wonderful time when all the people in Belize who speak English or Garifuni, and I don't really have a Latin American culture. It's more of a Caribbean culture. You know, I mean, in Guyana, they drive on the left. They play cricket. It's very much Caribbean. It surrounded Guyana, all the Guyanas, which in the past included Dutch Guyana, which is now Suriname, French Guyana, which is still French. I mean, it's still part of France. In fact, if you look on the back of a Euro note, you'll see French Guyana is actually on the map. They put it on the map. And also there was Spanish Guyana to the east of French Guyana, and there was it's Portuguese. It was Portuguese to the east, and then it was Spanish Guyana to the west, a lot of which is now became Venezuela. And the thing about the Guyanas is they're completely surrounded by impenetrable rainforest. So they were pretty sheltered, I guess, and these tabletop mountains, what are they called? Tuipes or something? Oh, they got a special name. In fact, Angel Falls, the tallest waterfall in the world, comes off one of these tabletop mountains. It makes it very difficult to get across from one side to the other. The idea of Venezuela actually taking over Guyana it's for the birds. Like, it's not going to happen now that Maduro's gone, I don't think. But they had a referendum last year, the year before now. And they asked the people, do you want to invade our neighbor? Do you want to invade Guyana? And they're like, yeah, sure. Because they've been told all their lives that Guyana, British Guyana, had stolen their land, stolen their sacred lands. That was given to them by who? I don't know, Christopher Columbus. The first person to chart the land was Sir Francis Drake, actually, in British Guyana. It wasn't Columbus. He never landed there because it was too fucked up. Fucked up. It was too jungly. What have we got here? The best kind. Millet won't touch the Falklands again. I really doubt. I really doubt it. PTSD is real. THC at the right dose can help resolve the unresolved nerve gone rogue with the fear experience. I call it 5 minutes to Mars therapy. Kindness therapy. That's I'm happy enough. That's okay. Thanks for that. And then I'm glad that it works for you. I'm glad that it works for you for that particular issue that you have. If you have anxiety, I don't know if it's the best thing. Also, if you suffer from paranoia, really don't think it's the best thing. I really, really don't think it's the best thing to be taking THC if you already suffer from paranoia. I think it might just make a bad situation worse, but what do I know? I'm not a physician. Vietnam. Quebec wants to be Western France. Yeah, it does. Too jungly. He preferred drum and bass. Yeah, because jungle is massive. And Diz says it's never the woman's fault. Yep, you're absolutely right. And Nick says, yeah, the discounts were crazy, weren't they? Except on Mario or Zelda, typical. Sticking with our OLED for now, but S2 is probably going to look tempting in the next year. Enjoy! Organic LED. Cool. Anyway, so, yeah, let's say, Venezuela's not going to end at this. The whole situation in Venezuela is just going to stop now, and the power structures remain intact. The military leadership still controls the territory. Armed militias still retain leverage in the country, and corruption networks still survive, despite the fact that the regime has been decapitated, but someone else has, like a hydra, another head has appeared in its place. And stability requires a long-term stability requires a US buy-in that they're not going to be willing to give. I don't think they're going to be willing to put troops on the ground. And so when it comes to infrastructure that America will have an interest in maintaining and defending against insurgency, I think they might have I think they're going to have a lot of trouble on their hands. And it's kind of thing like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. Trump takes simplistic concepts and runs with them. Tariffs, very simplistic concept. And he thinks that's going to work and create all this money for America, when actually it's taking money from American companies, it's taking money from American consumers. It's not taking money from China. It's not taking money from Russia. It's not taking money from the European Union. It's taking money from Americans, because you pay it when it comes in. It's a tax on imports paid by the importer, not the exporter. That's very important to remember. Simplistic ideas to complex problems. This is the right-wing mantra. This is, all our problems will be solved if we take Czechoslovakia. All our problems will be solved if we annex Austria. All our problems will be solved if we invade Poland. And it's a simplistic answer to a complex question, like how do we grow our economy? How do we maintain our hegemony over the world? How do we do this? And in Trump's stupid fucking head, he's like, oh, Venezuela has lots of oil. I'll get rid of the leader, do a deal with the people who remain, and I'll get access to the oil, right? And great, but he hasn't really thought through the implications of that, and the fact that Venezuela is an unstable country. Trying to maintain any kind of relationship in that way is very difficult. Trying to defend the places where they're digging oil out the ground is going to be difficult. I could foresee. And if the price of oil does crash, and it is an all-time low at the moment, it crashes even further as a result of this, you're going to have some angry Saudis banging on the door saying, oi, Trump, we gave your son-in-law $3 billion so you wouldn't do this. Why are you making oil really cheap? Because he's got to keep his domestic audience happy by saying, oh, we've got cheap petrol. But at the same time, if you make oil too cheap, then he's going to piss off his nearest and dearest, like Vladimir Putin of Russia, who, he's enthralled to. So, yeah, and so the logic here is, it's not great. It is not great. And I want to stress again, as I've been saying all weekend, like, Maduro is a gobshite. I'm glad he's not the president anymore. But I don't know if what replaced him is going to be any better, to be honest. But no, the real worry here isn't necessarily to do with what Trump does next, although that is a worry, Greenland especially. It's more to do with authoritarian copycats and power being exercised without any kind of restraint invites imitation. It just fucking does. Like, and China is looking at Taiwan. Vladimir Putin is saying, that's interesting. So you can just go and do something that is a clear violation of international norms, if not laws. I think it's a violation of international laws, but do they matter anymore? And justifications become kind of interchangeable. And this is. You got to remember as well, like chaos benefits the rich. Like if you are rich and Blood on the Streets, that was the name of the book, written by, co-authored by Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad. Chaos, Blood on the Streets. The best time to make money is during chaotic times. They don't want stability. They don't want us to have a peaceful, happy life. They want us to be living in a perpetual state of mortifying fear. The best revenge we can have against these motherfuckers is a life well lived, is a life where we don't succumb to this fear machine that they're trying to, anxiety machine that they're trying to steamroll us with. But then we've got the bind that Europe finds itself in and why it's so difficult, because we need to say something so he doesn't invade fucking Greenland. But if we do say something, then the consequences for people in this country straight away could be really, really bad, and Keir Starmer prioritizes economic survival. He has to. People say, oh, he's a coward. I don't think he is. I think the cowardly thing to do in his position would be to try and keep on being prime minister for as long as possible, which will entail him telling the US to fuck off. That would actually be braver, because he'll get some popularity for doing that. He might get some credit. He might get some kudos. He doesn't get any kudos for what he's doing at the moment. It pisses off people on the left, pisses off people on the right. He's already pissed off people on the right. I don't give a fuck what he says. The smarter move for him personally, for his political ambitions, is to actually condemn Trump. The difficult one is to not condemn Trump, because knowing that it could lead to a recession in this country, and a recession means that thousands of children will be plunged back into poverty, from which Labour are trying desperately to try and get kids out of poverty with the ending of the 2-child benefit cap, with the school meals, with the schools getting schools to brush the teeth of children who are not getting their fucking teeth brushed. What was it like? I think like half the fucking admissions to hospital under the Tories were kids with their fucking teeth, because the dental hygiene was so poor, because it was so hard to get a dentist. I booked an appointment, a checkup with my dentist in September. It's not going to happen till next month. 5 months just for a checkup, just to make sure my teeth are all in the right order. That is mad, isn't it? But condemnation by Starmer risks retaliation, but not condemning it risks escalation, i.e., America going, "Oh, let's take Greenland next." It is an absolute bind. I am very glad I am not prime minister. There's people fantasize about being in charge. I would not like to be in charge of this country right now. It would absolutely fucking suck. And I like I said earlier, I don't believe that if they do go into Greenland, I think it will be, I think it'll be America's grave. Well, maybe not America's graveyard, but certainly Trump and MAGA's. I think it'll be MAGA's graveyard. I'm trying to take over a frozen wasteland. I don't think they have any idea how difficult that's going to be. I mean, how many icebreakers do Americans have in their entire fleet? Was it 2? I mean, they've got a huge fleet. They've got thousands of ships in the American Navy. I think they've only got 2 icebreakers. Yeah, think about that for a moment. It's really grim. It's sodding cold. Just turn the fire on. Yeah, good idea. It's got to be better than smoking. Most things are. Isn't Greenland part of NATO? Yes, it is. It absolutely is part of NATO, Sarah, because it's part of Denmark, which is a member of NATO, one of the 32. Neville Chamberlain, didn't he used to do Prime Minister impressions? Yes, he did. Right, he was in an impossible situation as well. We didn't have after World War One, we had agreed with other nations under the Treaty of Versailles to wind down our military production. Like we wound it down. We could build defensive planes like Spitfires and things like that. We couldn't build bombers necessarily because they're offensive, and whereas Spitfires are defensive, we could spend money on defense, and that was the rules that we had made with the French and others to stop Germany rising up again. But obviously the Nazi war machine was in full flight, and Neville Chamberlain, a little bit of more of a nuanced take on what happened with Neville Chamberlain is that he agreed to be the fall guy, to just bide the time until we got this stuff built to defend our country. Otherwise, the Second World War might have started in 1938, and we're not ready. We were barely ready in 1940 once the phony war ended and the Battle of Britain started. And this is it. This is why it is so difficult in these situations, and why history is not going to look fondly on Starmer. I don't think, but I think he's in an impossible situation at the same time. I think that anyone in this situation would be in an impossible bind. What do you do? Do you say, yay, that's great, well done, Trump, for doing what you did? And then he goes, great, okay, I'll take Greenland. Or do you say, that was a very naughty thing what you did there, Trump, you're a bastard, I hate you. And then he says, okay, I'm going to put economic sanctions on your country. And you people in this country, children go without food in this country as a result. Your choice. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Greenland destabilizes the world. Either way is a fucking nightmare, isn't it? And could lead to British people dying unnecessarily because of fucking Trump. Because of this fucking gobshite in America who they decided to put in charge, even though he's a piece of shit. One Angry Pagan says, I don't envy Starmer in the slightest. I don't either. I really don't. And this isn't a defense of Starmer in terms of, some of the daft things that he's done. He's not a very good public speaker, and he's not very charismatic, and his comms are fucking awful. But in this particular situation, I think he's genuinely in a bind. And it is all well and good for leaders of opposition parties to call Trump all kinds of names. They're not in power. They're not bound by the rules of diplomacy. But yeah, like going back to the rules-based order, and the alternative is anarchy. And the thing is, the continuous enforcement of your will over people who do not deign to be governed by you, right? They don't want you there. They can govern amongst themselves. They just don't want those outsiders coming in and telling them what to do. Nobody does. And it gets everyone's back up. It's not like people in Africa were sitting there in the 1880s going, I hope a European power comes and tells us what to do. That'd be great. Hope they come over here and take all our resources. Did not happen. I don't think it's ever happened ever in the history of the fucking world. And yet, maybe you could give an example of Brunei, which didn't want independence, but Britain was like, no, you get independence. And they were like, I don't want it. Maybe that was the exception that proves the rule. But most people, given the opportunity to be attached to another country that they do not feel like is part of their culture, they'll say no. They will say no. Look at what happened in the Comoros Islands off the coast of Africa, between Tanzania and Madagascar. There's 4 islands. One of them's French, Mayotte. And Mayotte has had 2 referendums in the past 50 years. And the first one to say, do you want to be part of Mayotte? Do you want to be part of independent Comoros, or do you want to stick with France? 99% of people said they want to stick with part of France. And then they did another referendum, I think in the 90s. It was 99.4% of people said they wanted to stick with France. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was overwhelming. Why? Why wouldn't they want to be part of independent Comoros? Doesn't anyone want independence? No, it depends on the people who live there. They've got to make the decision. The people in Gibraltar are quite happy to be seen as British. The people in Mayotte are quite happy to be seen as French. The people in New Caledonia, though, in the Pacific, they're not quite happy about being seen as French. And there is a lot of tension between the native population there and the people who have come over from France. And they're getting more and more autonomy, and France might get to a point where they can't hold on to it anymore because the people there, once it becomes a majority of people who do not consent to being ruled by this country literally on the other side of the world, they'll become an independent state. Worth keeping an eye on that one. Urbane Legends, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Europe coordinates pulling American debt, stops it, says Urbane Legends. Yeah. We talked about this before. Yeah, absolutely. That is a lever that Europe can pull and I think should pull. Destroy America. Not destroy America, just enough to upset America economically. Because the American bond market at the moment is fucked. They're selling bonds are like 1 year, 2 year bonds. I mean, like they're trying to get as much money as possible in as short a time as possible, and no one's going for those longer yields, those longer time frames with a higher yield. Sorry, 20, 30 year old, 20, 30 year bonds. So people aren't buying them because they're just like, if I'm going to make some money, I'm going to cash in as soon as I can. And so, they put higher interest rates on, but the American taxpayer has to pay those interest rates because they're the ones borrowing the money. And those short-term bonds cost a lot more. And a lot of them are going to be liquidated or called in, or whatever the phrase they use. The debt is going to be called in this year, 2026. And don't forget, Europe has a fuckload of bonds. Japan has got a fuckload of bonds. Britain on its own has got a shedload. The second biggest owner of American debt in the world after Japan is Britain. And if you take in British territories around the world, we're actually number one. In fact, apparently I think the Cayman Islands, I think it's $400 million dollars worth of bonds. I think it's 400 million. It might be more than that. I don't know. But the reality is a lot more than they're saying it is. And I think it's because it's American companies in Cayman. So it's not counted as foreign debt, but it's still held in the... It's an awkward situation. But yeah. Let me have a look. US foreign debt by country. Okie dokie, images. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, can I see this big, please? Can I see this? I want to see this bigger. Okay. Major holders of debt. I'm trying to see where Cayman Islands. Oh, yeah. Sorry, 418. 400. Did I say million? Sorry, I meant billion. It's been a long day. I meant billion with a B. That is a ridiculous amount of De Niro there. That is crazy. Look at that. I'll make that a bit bigger for you. So major foreign holders of US Treasury securities bonds as of December 2024. So this is a year out of date. But you got Japan with over $1 trillion. That is over $1 trillion of US bonds. China has got 759. The UK has actually overtaken China, I think, in the last year. But we've got 722 billion with a B, right? Don't forget, our GDP is about 3.5 trillion. There you go. Look, the Cayman Islands. So, if you add the Cayman Islands at 418 and you add that to 722, that actually puts us in the lead above Japan for how many for how many bonds we have. And yeah, we could do a serious. Canada's got fuckloads as well. $378 billion worth of bonds. The other thing that we can do, confetti! Sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen. But you can still subscribe. Should be awesome. The other thing that we can look at as a thing that we hold over America, along with bonds, is the fact that America is the reserve currency of the world. We'll make it the euro, and they're fucked, aren't they? Also, all oil is traded in dollars. Make it euros. Trade in euros, and they say, well, that's not fair. That's not right. We had a deal. So, you've got rid of the world order. The World Trade Organization is defunct at the moment, effectively. So you just do what you like. Do you think that Trump's tariffs were in line with the WTO. No, they went in complete violation of one of the basic rules of the WTO, which is the most favored nation clause, which is like you can't put tariffs on one commodity or one country that if you don't give it to everybody else, unless you've got a specific trade deal in place, a free trade deal with that country that you've negotiated. Otherwise, you can't say to Argentina, "Well, we won't tariff your beef, but we will tariff it from Australia," unless you have a deal in place. You've got to give everyone else the same ballpark figure for that particular commodity. That's one of the bases of the WTO, which we were a member of, which we are a member of. It's just a bit defunct at the moment. The National Guard thing was supposed to cause violent unrest so that Trump could declare martial law, but the guys in Portland were clever. Yeah, that's a really good point as well. I mean, if Trump does allow the midterms to go ahead, which maybe he will, maybe he won't, I think it could be really interesting. Like, if he... I don't think it's going to be a huge... I don't think it's going to be a sea change necessarily. It might be if Trump pisses enough people off over the next few months. But the Democrats still have an uphill struggle. They really do. They might win 3 seats back in the House of Representatives, which will give them power, but only a little smidgen of power. What they really need is they need, in these midterms, to just absolutely fucking dominate, get like 99% of the seats available, and then have a super majority in the House and just be able to do what the fuck they want, be able to impeach and put Trump in jail, which they can do if they've got over 60 seats in the House of in the Senate. But I don't think it's going to happen. It's very, very difficult. The odds are not in their favor. And what else? You played Chucky Egg on emulators online. I play it from time to time if I'm not in a bad mood. Chucky Egg, what a great game. I've got my inflatable frog costume for the next protest, says Daylight M, which is quite cool. Trump wants to conclude. Trump wants dominance without any kind of responsibility, and empires require administration, not just force. And any kind of incursion into someone else's foreign sovereign territory will generate resistance. I don't forget the whole Brexit vote was driven by people lying about the fact that we had somehow surrendered our sovereignty to the EU, which we absolutely hadn't. In fact, being part of the EU enhanced our sovereignty because it made us stronger on the world stage than we would be alone. But people didn't really understand that. But yeah, control without consent demands repression, and that's just not going to happen to people who have grown up watching movies and watching TV shows and knowing what it's like to be able to say what the fuck they like. You might be able to get away with it in a closed society like North Korea, but even there, people trying to leave every fucking day. Half the population would fucking leave tomorrow if they could get away with it. And this sort of this victory that America has in its back pocket right now with Maduro, it could turn into a poison chalice. It really could for America in general, because it raises questions that nobody can answer, like who decides legitimacy now, like who enforces the enforcers, what happens when this logic turns inward and neighbors start attacking neighbors because they feel like they feel empowered by what Trump has done, and how many times can force replace order? The big question is in this whole situation is when does the bill finally arrive? Not great by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, so we're going to have a look at the papers now, if you do not mind. Where is it? Daddy, what did you do when Trump was starting World War III? I wore an inflatable frog suit and danced in the street, son. Not enough, says Graham Price. Well, what you've got to do, Graham, is not do what the enemy want you to do. And what the enemy wanted out of Portland was for armed resistance. And they didn't get it. They got people dressed up in frog suits dancing around. Honestly, I think that was the really smart move. And now the National Guard have been removed from Portland. And everywhere else, Chicago and Washington, have been moved out. The way national debts work, the bill doesn't arrive, they just keep kicking it up the road. Yeah, I wasn't talking about national debts in this respect, Andy. I was talking about the debt that needs to be paid, which is the debt to the truth, the debt to law and justice. It will one day be paid, and when that happens, it'll be quite grim, I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, we're just gonna have a quick look at the papers. We've got tyrant captured by lunatic, one president in cuffs, but fears Trump set to launch new missions. Mad Men. Starmer says we stand with Denmark as US leaders eyes Greenland. Defiant Majora tells US court, I am a prisoner of war. Drivers over 70 to face compulsory eyesight test. I really, really, really agree with that. I don't know why anyone would disagree with that. It's like, no, we should let blind people to fucking drive. No. And I know enough stubborn old people who have continued driving long past the point when they should have hung up their car keys. So yeah. Also, as someone who's been affected by dementia in the family, I also like to say that being able to take my dad's car keys off him and being able to say to him, "This isn't me. This is the rules. You can't see well enough to be able to drive," would be a lot easier than taking keys off someone because they're showing signs of dementia. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I think you'd have a real tough time arguing against the idea of compulsory eye tests for anyone over the age of 70 who is continuing to drive. Daily Express here. New warning over hidden danger of salt in diet. I think we all know that salt is bad for you. Millions of adults eating 40% more than the recommended 6 grams a day. We've got Man Baby United there. Old Gold Trafford Orange Man Baby Donald Trump is 2,000 to 1 to take over Manchester United. Greenland raid will finish NATO. Trump is warned, but he will like that. He doesn't like NATO. He wants to be part of Russia. He wants Americans to speak Russian. He wants to be in thrall. He is in thrall of Vladimir Putin, who he loves. Oh, Ivan's just popped into the chat. Hello, Ivan. How you doing, mate? Just popped in very briefly. People are going to have to bear with me at the moment. We all deal with things differently, and for my strategy is limiting engagement. I just worry some people might think I'm not doing anything. No, I don't think that at all, Ivan. I don't think anyone here thinks that. What you managed to do, getting your MP to bring up the issue of the treatment of autistic people during a pandemic, which in the previous pandemic was fucking awful, and changing things. You changed that. That is absolutely awesome. Most important thing is that you have to look after your own health first. And if watching these shows isn't great for your mental health at the moment, stop watching these shows. We know you're there. We know you're a friend of the channel, and you're very generous as well. Thank you so much for that super chat. It's very kind of you. But like, don't feel like you have to oblige to watch this stuff if it isn't helping your mental health. If it's making your mental health suffer, you've got to concentrate on you. You've got to put your mask on first before you put it on somebody else. Yeah. So thanks, Ivan. Thanks. Really appreciate it. And I don't think that anyone here thinks that you're doing nothing. I really don't. You've proven that you're not. 3 inches of snow and we're a national embarrassment, says some woman who went to private school. I'm a prisoner of war. Maduro insists he's an innocent man. NHS app to fast track prostate diagnoses. That's good. Reeves blocks cash for struggling pubs. Rachel Reeves is blocking new financial support for pubs despite Sir Keir Starmer admitting many will struggle with new business rate charges. In a November budget, the Chancellor announced COVID-era business rate relief would end in April, having previously been scaled back from 75% to 40%. Well, it's not COVID anymore. It's not COVID. COVID's not a thing. So why are we still paying out of our tax to keep Weatherspoons afloat? I mean, I can see why people who run pubs are upset that they're losing their, government subsidy. But if you don't go to pubs, if you never go to pubs, like, why should you have to pay a pub tax? Why should you pay part of your earnings, part of, or when you buy something, you pay part of your VAT goes towards a pub that you'll never go to and never use, and put up pictures of, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves saying they're not welcome in your pub, and you're like, well, you're just basically saying that Labour voters aren't welcome there, which is 1 in 3 of the population. So, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But we need to look at the real reason why pubs are struggling. It's not COVID anymore, because COVID's not a thing, right? I know it still exists, but we don't have the global pandemic shutdown that we did have at the time. The thing is, Brexit, mate, that's why your pint of beer is £7.50 now. That's why we can only afford to have one drink in the pub once a month. Because of Brexit, the price of everything's gone up. The price of absolutely everything has gone up because of Brexit. Massive amounts of inflation because of Brexit. Because it's just harder to move stuff around. We used to have things set up to make moving things around easier. And then we put a thing in place, Brexit, to make moving things around harder. Why? I have no idea. Scott, hang on. No, sorry. I said why, I have no idea. I know why we did it. We were told to by the posh kids. The posh people came. The posh people came and told me what to think. Stupid bastards. Anyway, the Scots have been granted a World Cup bank holiday. I was expecting you, fake admiral, told police. This is the story here of a guy who, like Arnold fucking Rimmer from Red Dwarf, decided to dress up like a rear admiral or something. He turned up at a Remembrance Sunday event cosplaying as someone who was actually in the forces. And he was spotted by other members of the services going, who the fuck is this guy? Because they tend to know each other because they all fought alongside each other, And he had all these fucking medals that he bought from a fucking thrift shop from people who had actually fucking won them. He had an MBE. He had a Distinguished Service Cross, which is one step down from a fucking VC. I'm like, surely you would have heard of your exploits, sir. But yeah, this cosplaying as someone who's actually in the military, it's a big thing in the gammon community, The gammons fucking love it. Anyway, this guy who they've fined him 500 quid or something for dressing up as a soldier when he's not a soldier, a rear admiral or whatever it was. Private school teacher, by the way, private. So he's educating an entire generation of rich people, possibly that rich children, to grow up believing that the rules don't apply to them. And you don't need to you don't have to do anything yourself. You just take someone else's glory for yourself. You just steal their glory, pretend it was you all along. When people sing 2 World Cups and 1 World War or whatever they sing, I mean, I know it's the other way around. It's a joke. It's like, oh, did you fight in those wars? Did you win that World Cup? I don't think so. But well done anyway. Pubs are struggling because Graham stopped his 3 blokes in the pub show. Yes, I stopped my 3 blokes in the pub show because of Brexit. Simple as that. It was just too expensive to do those shows. Because those shows might get 50,000 views. I get £50 from YouTube. I get 50 quid. But it cost me more than 50 quid to get to the fucking pub. And to get Adam to the pub, or to get anyone else who's part of the team, like getting us to the pub, Kieran or Jason, to get them to the pub. We had to buy drinks when we were in the pub. Sometimes I had to buy food because we were fucking hungry. But yeah, just wasn't sustainable. Was not sustainable on the money that you make out of YouTube. Unfortunately. But yeah, especially when it went up to £7.50 a fucking pint. I'm surprised he wasn't dressed as an SS officer. They had one of them in America a few weeks back. Yeah, true. John C, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, which I will be spending on beer. The reason I visiting and spending on local pubs is due to a few loud, refuck, bigoted individuals who occupy every bar. Yeah. That's another good point. Like, why would you want to go somewhere where you don't feel welcome? And because fuckers have decided that bars are theirs, that's their preserve. All their bars belong to them. But then, pubs, I should say, pubs belong to them. Okay, fine, whatever. We don't really have that same problem in Liverpool so much. There's a few pubs that you probably want to stay away from, but here in Durham, no pubs. You just want to go in there because you won't feel welcome. You will not feel welcome. And then some pubs around here that aren't very nice either. Some flat roof pubs around here. Jesus, I mean, not being horrible, but flat roof pubs. God, they instill some sense of despair in me that I can't quite. I don't quite have the language to describe to you the feeling that I feel when experiencing a flat roof pub. It's just grim. It's just fucking grim. The 60s have a lot to answer for. Right, anyway, Iran tries to buy off protesters with cash. Defiance stocks send FTSE to the record high, which we talked about because, we're gearing up for World War III. Yay! Maduro says he is a prisoner of war and denies charges in US court. Greenland attack would end NATO, says Denmark. It's absolutely right, it would. Over 70s face driving ban for failing new eyesight tests. Older drivers face ban if they fail mandatory eyesight tests under new road safety proposals. Good. Investors profit as Maduro faces court. Microsoft and McKinsey pay as much as $1 million to sponsor Trump's Davos hub. Jesus. The deals Europe relies on to cut illegal immigration. And then we've got the Metro here. Who's next? 24 hours on from swoop on Maduro. US president repeats call to own Greenland and threatens Cuba and Colombia. Yay! It's all a bit grim. But I will say this now. If Trump does invade Greenland, I'm going to say something that is a little bit left field here. It might be a good thing. Do you know why? Because I do think that it will be MAGA's graveyard. I do think that it'll be an overstep for Trump. It will shred him of any kind of allies that he has because Russia is not to be trusted. China fucking hate him. And all of his allies around, Canada and Europe, Australia, New Zealand, they're just going to go, fuck this shit. And we will create a new NATO without America. We'll have to. We'll have no choice in the matter. I think that's going to happen anyway. I think a lot of people were hoping that Trump would die or that, he'll run out his term and someone else will come in who's a bit more sensible. But the anti-European rhetoric that's been coming out of the Trump MAGA camp can fuck off. And maybe this will be the accelerant that is required. And if he's going to invade anywhere, which is going to be horrible because people will die, people will suffer unnecessarily. It's a grim fucking tiding. I'd rather it was somewhere where there was very, very, very few people. If it has to be anywhere, rather it wasn't a fucking city full of people everywhere. I don't know. In the short term, it's going to be fucking horrific. It will make me hate Trump even more, which I didn't think is possible, but it will be. Also, as well as being the graveyard of MAGA, it might seriously impact the likes of Nigel Farage, who is very much up Trump's arse. So you imagine in a couple of years' time when Farage is trying to run for fucking government, whatever, and you've got a poster of him with his thumbs up in front of the golden elevator with Trump, and that's just vote Farage, get Trump. And I think that the negative reaction in Britain, if they try this, if they try to invade Greenland, which I think ultimately will be unsuccessful, but I do think it'll be the graveyard of MAGA, and I do think that it will fuck Nigel Farage in this country as well, which is always a good thing. Because fuck that guy, he's a shit. He really is a shit. Ivan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. Another £20. Thank you, Ivan. That's really kind of you. I'm planning on turning this into something productive, a new campaign for politicians, the press, and media to speak and report in autistic, suitable ways, including with warnings. That's a brilliant idea, Ivan. I think that's really, really good. And yeah, if you can take notes from what I do wrong, I think that'd be fantastic. I think that would be really, really, really good. It's Wayne Badger in the chat. Wayne, I'm as sweet as a chuffing nut, says Wayne. Oh, glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. I can't read what Wayne says without hearing Billy Butcher's. Is it Billy Butcher's name? Butcher's voice from The Boys in my head. Oh, you fucking back him up, aren't we? Martin, we can't rely on the US assisting any other NATO members, so no point in having them in the club. Yeah. And also, if we don't have them in the club, we can expand it because it doesn't have to be the North Atlantic Treaty Organization anymore. Ooh, what a mistake to make. It can expand to take in Japan and Taiwan and Australia and New Zealand. I don't think we'll take in Taiwan because of the situation with China, but Japan, South Korea, Singapore. Even though Singapore is a fascist state run by an autocrat with a heart of gold. But yeah, it's another story. John, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Plymouth in the 70s. I've never seen a pub empty faster than when a big burly bearded Macedonian sailors turned up. The Soviet Union Poles were always a good laugh, but shadowed by men in raincoats. Those guys could drink. Oh my God, those guys could drink. Apparently. Although I have sailed with Polish sailors. I've sailed with Ukrainian sailors and Russian sailors, and those guys can drink. Simon says, great ideas, Ivan. Great idea, Ivan. There are plenty of celebs who have come out as autistic or have autistic children, and they may be on board. I'm backing you 100%. Yeah, that's a really good idea, that there is a website that has autistic-friendly reporting of what's going on in the world. And that's a really, really good idea, Ivan. Because I might use that. I hate it. And it's one of the things I hate about the tabloid press. When they post graphic pictures, graphic images, anything like that really fucks me up. Because I can't get rid of the image. I have a very, very visual mind. And once an image is in my head, it'll stay there forever. I watched Irreversible probably 20 years ago. And the image of, if you've seen it, the guy being attacked in the club, that has stayed with me all that time. I've never been able to get it out of my head. Certain bits of Game of Thrones, like when the guy gets the gold poured on his head, that has stayed with me. I can't get rid of it. Or when, Ignio Montoya got killed by the mountain. The Viper got killed by the mountain. That was particularly grim. And the image of that is still in my head. And there's other things, like pictures of famous things, events and things like that are just seared into my mind, and I'd rather not see them. I'd also rather not see Trump. I don't want to see his ugly, goddamn, disgusting, orange, flabby, jowly, vagina-y face ever again. That would be a very happy bunny. If someone could pull a lever, never see Trump again. That would make me very happy, because I'm sick of seeing his fucking gormless twat of a face appear every morning in the news feed. Like, the first thing I do, wake up, look at the news feed, what's been going on, and it's always Trump, the first fucking picture. He does that on purpose because he wants to be in the news every fucking day. New polling company, Merlin Strategy, puts refuck as best party. However, that polling company was created in the same room as the refuck head officers. Oh my God. Thank you very much to Captain Coconut for the £5 super chat. It's very kind of you. Want to see him laying in state. I don't. I just want him in the ground. I don't want to see him ever again. He's so minging. He's so minging. He's like the antithesis of beauty. He's the antithesis of intelligence, and he's like the divergence of evolution. Like, humans have been trying to, not purposefully. It's just the way things go. Evolution has its own, way of finding its flow, but we've been trying to better ourselves as humans for generations, one way or another, and he just stands in in the way of that, or he stands in as a mockery of everything humans have achieved over the last 10,000 years of human civilization and the last billion years of evolution. He's a fucking gobshite. Anyway, I'm going to get off now because I've been yakking on for nearly 2 fucking hours. That's a bumper show for you. But thank you for joining me. You may go and listen to James O'Brien. Start on the app for 10 o'clock and then just skip all the ads. That's what I do. But I sometimes get a bit of grief for repeating myself on this channel. But I'll say this about myself: like, I don't need to pad it out. Like, I can just end these shows whenever I want, right? I don't have to say the same thing over and over again for 15 minutes to get to the break. But yesterday, James O'Brien, between 12 o'clock and 12:15, he just said the same 3 words over and over and over again. And it was just like, on the 19th time he said the same words over again, I was like, can you stop doing it? Can you? either move on and take a call or pick a new topic, because I'm sick of you saying these things. Just saying, just a little bit of constructive criticism there. Trump is an evolutionary dead end. Indeed, he is. Right. Thank you very much for watching. Please, 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 please don't make me beg. I'd love a like. There's a like on the way out. We'd love a like. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon. This episode is also available on YouTube Music as a podcast. All the shows on here are available as podcasts, so you can listen while you're driving in your car. You don't have to be distracted by me waving my hands around like a flailing robot in the 1970s. So yeah, if you'd like to join us tonight at 7:30 for Geoscope, me and Ollie will be picking up the pieces of what's happened in Venezuela and around the world in the last couple of weeks. Oh, Jesus Christ. And then tomorrow morning, we've got a bit of a bumper day ahead of us. In the morning, at 9 o'clock, we've got Morning Brew. At 12 o'clock, we have got the first PMQs of the year, and then at 6 o'clock, we're going to be jumping down the rabbit hole, me and Rach, to see what is pop culture stuff to talk about for the year ahead. I think we might look at what's coming out. I might look at pop culture stuff. What we're looking forward to. What are things to look forward to in 2026? Should we do that? That'd be nice, won't it? Nice things. Oh, before I go, Ivan has just dropped another super chat in. Thank you, Ivan. That's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly kind of you. And I'm actually going to, because you've given 3 super chats of 20 quid each, I'm going to give you the mega chat animation. Mega chat! Thank you! Thank you, Ivan. Mega chat. Another part of it is a common use of intense wording and language. Some of it is needed in these situations, but not all of it. Things can be over-animated when all many autistic people want is the facts in a calm ways. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I completely agree, Ivan. I want to just say, the sensationalization of things that are happening is horrible. And it's one of the reasons why I try on this channel. I don't know if I always succeed, but I always try to be a bit level-headed about it and not like, oh no, we're all going to die. It's like, life goes on. It's shit, but life goes on. And these are some positives that might come out of this horrible situation. Whereas there are a lot of streamers, and I'm not, dissing any of my mates here, but, there are like the people who are always like, everything's dead sensational. And this is the end of the world, or this is going to finish Trump, or this is going to do this. And I'm just like, calm down. Just tell us what happened. Yeah, this is the end of Trump. What did he do? He stumbled going up the flight of stairs to the... Trump is dying. Why is he dying? Because, Anyway. Whew. Here we go again. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this morning on Politics Social. I've been Graham Hughes. You've been fucking awesome. Hopefully I'll see you tonight, if not tomorrow. And until then, just want to say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.